I'm trying to do something different with this video. Instead of attempting desperately hard to make some sort of animation using no content creation apps, just because my poor MacBook Air is 8 years old and already full of junk, this time I'm taking it easy. Let me know in the comment if you still like to listen to me talk neuropsych and the brain this way, but if not, let me know as well. For now, let's get into the real stuff. Broadly speaking, clinical neuropsychologists usually play 4 roles in the healthcare system: the evaluative role, the educational role, the rehabilitative role, and the medico-legal role. I have made individual videos dedicated to explaining each of these roles. Links can be found in the description, and I welcome you to have a look at those to gain a holistic impression of the profession, since not many people really know what we do. This video talks about the rehabilitative role of clinical neuropsychologist. As you might know, a good rehabilitation must rely on a good assessment of the patient. In this sense, the rehabilitative role is very closely linked with the evaluative role. Sometimes psychologists might find themselves relying heavily on composite or summarizing scores such as the IQ score to inform clinical impression of the patient. Usually, these scores are derived from a variety of subtests measuring different functions, and as a result, interpretations of these composite scores alone can lead to ignorance of specific and important deficits which are concealed under the general impression. In other words, this is like when you summarize a person's limb mobility, for example, as 90% functional, without looking closer into this person who actually had 3 normal limbs but 1 paralyzed arm. Another issue that comes with this habit is that a single composite score could be made up in numerous individual ways. Very simply put, we know that 5 plus 3 equals 8, so is 1 plus 7, and so is 7.9 plus 0.1. Therefore, the point is that interpreting a single summarizing or composite score can be very misleading when you're trying to make a diagnostic judgment about the patient sitting in front of you. The implication here that's related to the rehabilitative role is that without a proper analysis of the patient, or when only a single composite score is available, it would also be very difficult for the clinical neuropsychologist to ensure the efficacy of treatment designed based on whatever the information the composite score is able to convey. Moving on, let's now think about the idea of individualized treatment. Apparently, it is not uncommon for even experienced psychologists to advocate for some sort of standard treatment regime without due consideration for differences in the individual case. This is pretty straightforward and easy to understand. However, the point that I'm trying to make here is that it should always be mandatory for the clinician to ascertain the nature of the disorder in the individual case currently being managed. Another layer of complication which might influence treatment design is the impact of emotional and psychosocial factors unique to the patient. What this means for the clinical neuropsychologist is the importance of knowledge about human psychopathology in a clinical setting. Therefore, if they're not already expert clinical psychologists, they should consider having a good working relationship with clinical psychologists when it comes to patient care. So, how do you know when to stop or change the treatment approach for the patient? How do you know the patient is benefiting the most they can out of our care? Questions like these can be best answered by serial examination. If the patient displayed a stable set of deficits, then we should consider a reappraisal of the treatment aim based on the patient's current state of well-being. One consideration that should be taken into account when conducting serial examination is thinking about what kind of small objective gain may have great significance for the patient. So what this means is that we need to be able to translate for the patient how an objective improvement as manifested on formal cognitive testing might manifest in their everyday life. The thing is, there is currently no test, not many tests that can approximate both sides closely enough. For this reason, neuropsychologists in rehabilitation settings should also consider collaborating with colleagues in occupational psychology. In summary, today we talked about the risk of relying on a summarizing score in making diagnostic judgment about the patient and the importance of individualizing treatment according to needs and nature of the condition that the patient is experiencing, as well as finally the means by which a neuropsychologist might gauge progress of treatment. So, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more specialist knowledge in the field of clinical neuropsychology and more things about the brain.